Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another Supercoach Insider podcast. My name is Swizz, here to talk Road to Round 1, Swizz's February team, Part 2. As always, thank you for all the shout-outs that we get, all the correspondence from the public. We absolutely love it. Continue to support us. Check us out on all our channels, the YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, what have we got there, Facebook, Spotify, Soundcloud, it's all there. Supercoach 100 on Twitter if you want to talk to Benny in particular, or Chris, or Swiz26 if you want me directly. As always, thank you to Splash Vodka for their ongoing support of this podcast. Now, Chris has been doing a much better job than me uploading these around Road to Round 1s. I know Benny Boy's just put out his second one, but I think Chris is up to about version number 5, so great work by him. But so here finally is my number 2 team, and there has been a bit of swapping, and the hard thing is because we review teams bit by bit, I always find myself talking about a certain player, and then from there it's like, yes, how do I get that person in my team? So there is I find myself playing with my team way too much. Especially because I'm sort of at home, not doing a lot, recovering from an operation. So, I've got a bit too much time on my hand to play with my team. But, that's the way it goes. And I'm sure once those practice matches happen, I'll be playing with them a lot more. So I've just put my team straight up there today instead of, bit by bit. But I'm going to talk it through some spots that are pretty well much locked in, and then other positions that I've been chopping and changing a lot. So we'll start with the backline there. It's Tommy Stewart, and I've talked much about which of the 5 I like. Sinclair's been in there a bit, and more just because I've had the cash, and I always think it's easier to go down than it is up, but Stewart's the one that always seems to win out. I'm still debating between Stewart, Doherty, and Dawson. I've got it Stewart, then Dawson, then Doherty at the moment. They have all been in my team. I think Sicily's probably the one that has spent the least amount of time in my team, but not that I don't like him. It's just I think the others I've said before have some more hurt factor. So Stewart's in at the moment. I have played around with the idea of Dacos there being at D1, but I do feel more comfortable having one of the big dogs. I've got the VC on Stewart at the moment. He actually is not a bad VC candidate because he can go huge in some games. But he's the one at the moment there. So that as I said, that can change depending on how I'm feeling about Doherty or Dawson in particular. But it's just the one big guy there. Next to him's Yo. Yo hasn't changed for me. Something's got to go wrong for his injury. So moving on there. Hunter Clark's the one. So I did, as I said, have Dacos. I've had Dacos at D2 and I've had him at D1. I've used his money to drop down to Hunter Clark. And it's nothing against Dacos. He's highly owned. Looks like he's going to spend a bit more time in that midfield. What's not to like about him? I just think there is some value at the moment with Hunter Clark, been training with Lenny Hayes. I kind of want to see how fit he is and what the role is. I don't really want to spend that much money for a guy with those many unknowns, but it is easier for me to probably go down to, say, a McKenna from him is an option. He looks like he might be getting a right role that could be productive for us. And that would give me even more money. There is a couple other things I can do in my team to get Hunter Clark back up. I don't think I'm going to go Stewart and say Dawson or Doherty. There is that potential. I just think there's a little bit too much money spent in the back line where guys at that sort of price, and it's a hard thing to go, well, we know Stewart and say Doherty and whatever, they can go their big scores on any given day. But when you're comparing them against Cripps and Steele and those sort of players and that obviously those midfielders are just so much more reliable and also become proper VC and captain options. So I'd rather nearly go more mid-prices or rookies into defence, and still could find myself not starting any of them. But I think ones I'm pretty comfortable with. Caulfield's come in ahead of Godar just because Godar's been sort of pushed out of that possible sides and been playing for more the probables. I know a lot of North supporters are probably a bit surprised with that, and probably just any onlookers thinking they would blood a lot more players. But it looks like Zeeble might have that role down there. Don't know what's going on with Taron Thomas. They've still got Aaron Hall, Luke McDonald, Blake Jury's apparently it's gone ahead of him too. So they do have some options there with North. What do they do with Griffin Logue, Aidan Cool? So they've got kind of key players already with Ben Mackay taking one of those spots. Bailey Scott's floated in and out of, and I don't think he's a great defender, but he is a bit of a Mr. Fix-It man. So does he start to lock down a spot somewhere? There's a lot of questions about North, so that's why Caulfield's come in. As long as Caulfield's fit, big chance I start him. And then Ginby's the last defender, and all reports there, all ticks there. So Weddle and Cowan's come in because of Zach Williams' injury. A lot of great reports coming out of him. I think he's the Tasmanian boy. So, yeah, no dramas there with that kind of how I'm setting up there. The midfield, I've been pretty well just going Oliver and Bont. Oliver's, there's been rumours about hand injuries and whatever, but I just think he's the safest captain option we have. 120 every second week. Can go, I think it's 135 every third week. So, just, I feel much more comfortable starting Clary than not starting him. I think the only way you're not starting Clary, if you've banked in and you've gone Laird or Neil as one of those big guys, or for whatever reason you're thinking, I'm not going to start any of those big dogs. I'm going to just put value in and just really risk it for the biscuit. But I think there's a lot of risk there, not having one of them. So yeah, he's there too. And the one that's come in is Took for me. I am happy just to go Oliver and Bont and then go, say, your Steels and stuff. And Took's the one that probably will come more in and out, maybe even drop Mills for 20k if I need it. Steele gives me 60k. I like Cripps as well. So there's a few options. Tom Mitchell's been in and out, but I kind of don't want to go that far down. But he's just in such good fitness. He just looks absolutely ripped. And 124 the year before, 120 last year. I've talked about before, I think Bont's the number one guy this year. I think Took would not surprise me if he was the number one guy and won the Brownlow and did everything like that. And the other one I think in that contention is Clary. So kind of the three guys I'm most confident on being one of them being the top scorer at the moment I want in my side. So I'm pretty confident with that kind of setup. Tom Green, the inside bull from the Giants, I think it's either him or Mitchell, and then maybe LDU Anderson. I've got no problem if you want to go one of them. A lot of people have got one in their side. I just think there's some good value there. Not knocking anybody who's going both Green and Mitchell. Definitely some upside in both. I just feel more confident with choosing one. And at the moment, I think I'm more confident in Green. Just seems to have the keys to that midfield. And all reports in all the reports so far in all the match sims is he has been the one absolutely dominating. And that it looks like Chris is sending me stuff about Tom Mitchell as we speak. So the next there, that M5 and 6. M5, I haven't changed. It's Hopper. It's been Hopper the whole time. M6, Sheed's the one that keeps coming out and going if I need extra cash. Finn Callahan has come in quite a few times. I feel more confident with Sheed there. I know Chris has talked about, it's not hard to get up to Setterfield. And to have that sort of cash sitting there where you could make that change if Sheed doesn't find Setterfield does. Sheed, I like the price point because it is easy to get down to, say, Finn Callahan, and then I'll make, was it 90k there? If Finn was to fire, Sheed hasn't set the world on fire, but I know he's had good, sort of waffle and under 18 numbers and that. So there is some confidence there. He's playing through the midfield and all the match sims. So could he go 90, which would be, enough to make some cash for us? He's currently, got that break even of 60. So yeah, I think at worst, it probably does, maybe 80, 85 at the very worst than that. I don't think he's pumping 100, but yeah, 90, yeah, I'll take that for my, M6. So, and then Ashcroft Phillips, nothing's changed there. I've got Hewitt on the bench. I have played around with the idea of Callahan coming in and Phillips going there. I just think it's too much money on the bench. And I think Phillips or Hewitt, one of them is going to score points. I know I'm going to mark up which one I have on field each week, but I think I don't want so much cash just sitting there on my defence. Yes, some of these rookies are going to be sub options, which is a problem, and maybe it has to be the case where maybe it's Chester comes in, Gimpy comes, and and you've got options to rotate. And I have had Chester in there. I do like that loophole option. Chester's just coming back from injury. I only played 1/4 of match sim the other day, so unless he lines up round one, it's probably more a downgrade option. But if he gets up, or even Warner from Fremantle, if he gets over his, I think it's hamstring injury, he could come back in here and create a loophole for me. For now, Oscar Baker looks like he might have some sort of role there for the Bulldogs, maybe on a wing with Lockie Hunter gone. There's a lot of chopping and changing still with the Dogs and how some of their players line up, so I'll wait and see there, but that's an easy one for me to swap for one of those guys. And we've talked about Johnson at length there for Freo. So this is the big one. Marshall hasn't changed. Like, Marshall's been my R2 or R1 the entire time. Darcy Cameron. So I've had English. I went up to Wits. I found the money to get to Wits and keep him there. And I thought, again, at one point I had Sinclair, I had Laird, and I had Wits. I was like, okay, I'll just put the 3 big dogs in, and then I can just go down. I'll have cash left over when I find the person that I want. But then I mucked around with it and thought, no, let's get my setup how I like. And I wanted Darcy Cameron from day one. I had him last year. I'm a huge fan of him. I've had Lycett in there. I know a lot of people are now jumping on Lycett. I've got Cameron over Lycett just because it's easier, again, to go down than it is to go up. I feel like if I've got Lycett, Darcy Cameron, I'm going to keep anyway if he's fit and put him in the forward line just to have that reliability. I'm not sold on Grundy. Big O, potential there with knocking down to Dunkley as well. Nick Nat's fairly fit, but, all these rucks are very similar. There's no ruck that's saying to me, I am the number one ruck. And the only thing I come back to is go, Darcy Cameron, at least I can move him to the forward line when that ruck puts their hand up and I go, yep, okay, that is the obvious choice. Or is it Lycett, and hope Lycett can somehow average 100, make enough cash where, I can get up to whoever that ruck is. English is still the obvious choice. Like, if English plays, I think he goes 110. He's the best ruck in it, but he's had his 3rd soft tissue injury. So he was the one that I wanted in my side, had in my side, and that's where I went up to Wits, and then I've gone down to Darcy Cameron. So it's just frustrating with, at the moment, having him with some of these ruck injuries, and the other rucks just not looking great. I know a few people are banking in Grundy. I want to see it in match play, how that works with Gawn. So forward line, Dunkley, Cornelio, Rosie, Taranto. I was all about the 3. I've really grown over the last month on the 4. I think the 4 big forwards, and they are the obvious big forwards. Dunkley and Cornelio. Cornelio has come out my side sometimes, but again, another guy that's playing prominently in the midfield. No Taranto, no Hopper. It's just a gun in there. I don't think it's a value pick, but I think he's definitely going to be top 6. So why not just start him there? I think he's probably the obvious number 2, unless Rosie or Butters one of them really pops off. Taranto hasn't left my side, unless he gets sort of some major injury at Richmond. He's playing midfield, has been dominating it in all their practice matches, all their training. So he's there. Rosie's the one that has come out when I've put Cameron there. I'm not as sold on Cunnington, but I get why people have done that. Chris did have me convinced on Zeeble. If I do see it, Zeeble's a big chance to come in. I more want to get, say, Bruce up to Zeeble, but then maybe it's a Lycett. Darcy Cameron comes into there, and then it's a Bruce up to a Zeeble type, and I've played around with that sort of setup as well. So I think I'm sitting about 75k, but yeah, there's a couple of things, and that's where your Took can come down to a Mills or come down to a Cripps or a Steele to help get that extra cash. So I think Dunkley, Cornelio, Taranto are my 3. Rosie for now, I've got the money to go to Butters. If it looks like Butters is more the player, kind of burnt me a little bit last year, Butters, but obviously finished really well. Rosie in the guts is awesome. And, the kid's a superstar. Is it a bad thing to have Cameron there? Because if Lycett was to get injured, or if I somehow changed around this or this to put English in, to have Darcy Cameron there as a backup when English obviously will miss one of his weeks. That's what I like there. So I want some sort of ruck security. So I think as long as Cameron's fit, if he's there or he's in one of these spots. And Josh Bruce, I want to see it first. He can easily become Ben King. I've got the money to go Oscar Allen. I'm a big fan of Oscar Allen, so that's one thing I was sort of looking at. He could become that, and then Toby McLean comes into that F6. Or is it a case where, Zeeble comes in and that, and, even that sort of setup where there's 5 of them, those 4 and 5, or Darcy Cameron, Zeeble. I'm trying to take out. It's probably too many mid-price. We talk about trying to have as many premiums in, but this idea of these rookies where they're not going to make as much cash if they get subbed, because all it takes is 1 week where they are subbed off early, or they start as the sub and they only come on and get a 20, and that cash gen for the next 3 weeks, that 20's in their score, just really hurts. So is it more reliable to have guys who we know are best 22, unless they get injured, aren't getting subbed, and then that, I'm getting points on field and I'm also making cash each week. So that's kind of where I've been leaning towards with that. And if that means not starting all these premiums, and maybe because of that situation, we aren't going to get the cash like last year, we were blessed. Day costs, we had Nick Martin, guys who are really cheap, especially in Nick Martin's case, and ends up getting in the 400Ks. I don't know who that's going to be this year. It might be like, it's more likely to be, say, a Bruce gets an intercept role, but is that like got Mitch McGovern written all over it again? Is as like Zeeble gets back in that role again and absolutely dominates and pumps himself back up into the 500s, and that maybe potentially becomes a keeper, gets full defensive status, something like that. Or is it a case of like, he gets that cash and then we can move him onto one of those guys? But I don't see some of these rookies. I'm really struggling to see which one of them is going to turn into our 300, 400,000 player. There's always somebody that pops up, but I'm just struggling to see it at the moment. So is it a case where, and that's where I don't mind those people who aren't going, I think you still need to have some sort of captain option, but say it's Took down, maybe even is 140k down to Tommy Mitchell, and then that 140k, if you've got your Rosie goes down, Lysa comes in, that becomes Zeeble, and the whole team is kind of that, mid prices with maybe only 1 or 2 rookies and they're expensive rookies that we're more sure of. So that's what I'm kind of leaning towards there. And the fact that we've got more trades still seem to burn through no matter what, but the 36 trades, as long as there's no major injuries, there is a little potential there to play with these mid prices, because 1 up, 1 down, or if they make the money that we hope, say Sheed and Hopper both average 90 or 95 for a stretch, get to that sort of 500. That's where last year, like a Petrarca got down to, I think, 460 or something like that. Zach Merritt always seems to drop down to like, a nice juicy price around 500s. So if one of those sort of players get on, it's not about maybe having these top premiums, but if I can still get a team that's close enough, like, I might not get the 120 guys, but some of these guys become the 115 guys, and you can get that team up and about earlier, you can still get ahead of the game. Probably not as good of a strategy for some leagues, because some people will eventually get their whole team perfect, but by then, have they won enough games in their leagues to challenge for finals? If they have, they're going to be tough to beat then. But for, overall ranking, the points on the field, the quicker you can get points on field, and then you just hope that you get a big enough gap when some of these other people get some of these teams, which are, all premiums and all uber premiums. So it's just about trying to use the money in the best places we can. So like that, as I said, it's the 1 defensive premium, the 3 big ones in the midfield, and I'm going the 4 forward guys. That's the big ones there, and 75,000 in cash just there as security at the moment. And I talked about in another pod the other day, earlier today actually, it was about having some money in the bank, because let's just say jury doesn't work out and it is 123,000. I need 22,000 maybe up to upgrade him. I might need Sheed to get up to a set of field, so there's some money I need there, and there's usually a couple of correction trades. So if your team is at 0, or everybody says that perfect amount down there and you're spending all your money, that's good. But unless you've got all the top end guys, so let's just say I've got Setterfield there, easier to go down to Sheed and Callahan. But if I have Callahan or if I have Sheed, and let's just say it is Setterfield that goes 100 for the first 2 weeks, and you have to get him in, well, if I don't have any cash, how do I do that? Otherwise, I'm making other trades to areas which I don't want to do. So that's just a bit of food for thought as well. So that's February. I'll try to get on again later on the month and see how that's changed, and especially maybe after the Feb 23rd, 24th, 25th around there, that practice matches. And we'll come up with another and see what's made the changes there. Keep sending in your teams and we'll keep reviewing that, and take care, Supercoach community. Bye.